Welcome to my podcast, The Government Mechanic. I am your host, Dr. Lynn Sandra Kahn, and I am the Government Mechanic. This is episode 10, a special one that we're calling Under the Hood, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA. My special guests are Steve Sanson, co-founder and president of Veterans in Politics International. Hi, Steve, from Las Vegas, Nevada. Hey.
Hi, Dr. Kahn. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Kathleen Monahan, who was my vice presidential running mate in 2016 and is also an organizational consultant and has done work with the VA.
And still is.
And I guess we all are, somewhat.
Yeah.
Okay, the way we've been starting these Under the Hood episodes is with the latest strategic plan from the department that we are analyzing. So we've all taken a bit of a look at the 2022-2028 strategic plan for the Department of Veterans Affairs. We looked at the mission, 4 strategic goals, and a couple little side discussions and strategies that are in that plan. What struck me first was they've changed the mission statement. After 150-something years, President Lincoln established the Department of Veterans Affairs to care for he who has borne the battle, his widow, and his orphans. And in 2023, the VA changed the mission statement to read, to fulfill President Lincoln's promise to care for those who have served in our nation's military and for their families, caregivers, and survivors. What do you all think about the new mission statement?
I kind of like Lincoln's. I just thought it was more, I don't know how to explain it. It's just better, you know. He who was born the battle, you know.
So it doesn't, so I think they changed it to include women, since so many hundreds of thousands of women have fought in our military. And to be explicit that it was the purpose, the mission of the department is to serve everyone who has been in the nation's military, families, caregivers, and survivors. Stephen, what do you think?
No comment. Either way, as long as it's inclusive, I don't care.
Okay, well, we're kind of mixed on the change. I'm happy about it. I was kind of cranky that it only said men and not inclusive of women as well, so I'm a little happier. What we also talked about was there are 4 strategic goals that the VA has in their strategic plan. The first one is about consistent communication. And I'm usually cranky when the strategic goal number 1 isn't the primary mission of the agency, but maybe I'll let it slide. Strategic goal 2 is the VA delivers timely, accessible, high quality benefits, care, and services. Strategic goal 3 is about building trust, and 4 is about governance and data systems. What do you think about these 4 strategic goals? Stephen?
I like them.
To me, they're general enough that I do like them, but the thing that's important is how do they follow up on that? What's below it, you know?
Yes. In reading it, especially the strategic goal 2, which is the most important one and ought to be strategic goal number 1, I thought that within it they made several important points that had not been pulled out before in their prior plans. So one is the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Defense Department are trying to partner and coordinate across their medical centers, which seems to me to be incredibly important, as not happened before. What do you all think?
I don't have that problem down here because I live in a military city. Pensacola is a Navy town. Everything's connected to the military. It doesn't matter where you go. So it's kind of a non-starter for us here. I remember living in Virginia that we had to make sure we went to certain facilities because otherwise they didn't connect. And if in Virginia they've now fixed that, then that's a good thing.
And I think, Steve, your experience with VA services, medical services, has been good.
It has. Anything over, I believe they have this new policy now. If you can't obtain a VA doctor within 30 days, then you could go into the community care program and see a civilian doctor that's contracted with the VA. So I've been doing that a lot, actually.
So there are more options, and it's easier to get access to community medical facilities if that's what you need.
Exactly, and a lot of them are closer than the VA hospital is, or clinic, for that matter. So yeah, accessibility should be number one.
You've made the point that you have to be an advocate for yourself and
Yes.
getting better medical care and coordinated care. Can you say what you meant by that?
Well, it doesn't matter what you do in life. You should always be an advocate for yourself, because you're your best advocate because you know what's going on with you. You know, as far as medical is concerned, I mean, you know what you're capable of, and what your pain tolerance is, and how much you could sustain and take. Um, what I meant by that, when we were having the conversation a couple days ago, a lot of these prescription drugs, people should really look at them and look them up and find out what the side effects are, because and there's so many avenues you could use to find out what the side effects are for prescription drugs. You could Google it, you could do Chat GPT. I mean, the tools are there. You just have to want to do it. So when you find out what these side effects are, like some of the drugs that I was on, the side effects that they mess with your liver and your kidney, and especially when the VA puts you on long term. I mean, if it's short term, that's probably okay. But if they put you on something that you got to take daily for the rest of your life, or for a couple of years, or for whatever, that might be a problem, because you're trying to fix one problem, and it messes up another problem, and everything goes through the kidney and the liver and the gallbladder and all that, which all filters. So you need to pay attention to that. Although your kidney and liver might be good today, it might not be good in the next 6 months after you start taking all these medications. So you have to be your best advocate.
You also have to keep in mind that if you get prescriptions from different doctors, even though they're in the same system, they may not realize you've got the other medication, and there could be an interaction between them that they don't know about. So you need to be careful about that too.
Yeah, like the Vikings and the Klingons,
Okay, another component of that strategic goal about delivering high quality services is really calling out the need to do something about homeless vets, and to work together with the Department of Defense as military people transition. Well, I know you don't like this phrase, transition out of the service or transition into civilian life. What thoughts do you have about helping our military folks transition into civilian life?
Even that whole sentence, homeless vets. I mean, it shouldn't even be on one sentence. I mean, it just shouldn't be. It's like divorce and marriage. I mean, you don't put that all in the same sentence, You separate them, right? Well, I mean, if you serve your country, man, you shouldn't be homeless at all. Homeless veterans. Well, it's what causes homelessness in veterans is a lot of it is self-medication, alcohol, drugs, uh, sometimes sex, violence, and it's mental illness, PTSD, TBI, traumatic brain injury, all of those aspects causes homelessness. And if you come out the military and you have a bad conduct discharge, or you have a dishonorable discharge, or whatever the discharge is,
Other than honorable too.
Yeah. Even other than honorable, that's a discharge too. But it could affect your job and your career and how much money you bring in for your family, you know? So all those play a part into being homeless, and some and then you got some military men out there and women out there just don't like government, you know? They just don't
Yeah.
want nothing to do with it. So they rather just, live on the land, and there is no land if you live in New York. I mean, you could go to Central Park and think that that's the jungle, but you're gonna get kicked out by the Central Park police. Then you're gonna end up in the concrete jungle, and it's not what they trained you for.
Mm.
Unless you're gonna kick indoors and all that, then that's a different story. But homeless veterans is shouldn't even be on the same sentence.
So
I'm
you're
just saying.
saying call it out, split it out as a strategic goal with more emphasis.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If they have some type of exit program from the active military into civilian life, that'll probably help a lot because now these veterans could know what their disabilities are and get their medical records in line and have a disability rating before they even step one foot out of the active military into civilian life. Like my son-in-law, before he left the army, he was by the time he stepped out of the army into civilian life a week later, he was 100% making making, I don't know, I think it's like I think it's $3,900 a month roughly. It depends on if you have dependents and blah blah blah. About $3,900 a month. And a lot of that, if veterans knew how to do that and get rid of their machismo attitude, they'd probably be better off, and they probably won't be such a thing as a homeless vets. And then when you get to homeless vets, sometimes you have incarcerated vets, and it becomes a cycle. You go from homelessness to inmate, and what good is that? I mean, according to statistics, there are 181,500 military veterans in state and federal prison. I mean, go figure. I mean, we train them just to lock them up. It just doesn't make any sense. It sounds like an
The
oxymoron.
training is part of the training is, to me, I understand why we have it. Obviously, that there's no question there, but they can't untrain them.
Exactly.
You've trained them
Yeah,
to respond a certain way, and
you know what? You can't unsay. You tell somebody that they're a moron. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. And how do you take that back? You can't.
yeah,
You already said it. It's out there. You
Okay,
put
so
something on Facebook.
putting this back to looking under the hood at how the Department of Veterans Affairs structures itself and what it prioritizes, you're saying a couple things. One is um, put a higher priority on dealing with homeless vets, be multidisciplinary about it because it involves a lot of different issues. There is
yeah.
something called the Transition Action Plan, I believe, that the Department of Defense is trying to put in place. But I think what you're saying is all of that needs to start way before people are transitioning out of the military. And that part of that is, and again, it's what you said about advocating for yourself, getting your medical records updated, putting everything together so that you're ready to transition out and have your medical records coordinated. So again, that's just another piece of both advocating for yourself and looking under the hood of the VA and saying, this isn't getting enough emphasis. Helping veterans transition into civilian life, whatever that means, is not happening well enough. Kathy, you've had some experience creating a program for homeless vets. Do you want to tell us what you've discovered that really works?
One of the things we found that works is, and this sounds so patently obvious, but you'd be surprised how often it doesn't happen, is talking to them, asking them what they want. You know, the old joke about assume. You can't assume that you know what every vet wants for housing. Some of them want to be with other vets. It makes them more comfortable to know that their next door neighbor had the same kind of training and the same kind of issues, so they have somebody to talk to. In other cases, they don't want anything to do with anybody ever again, you know?
What have you been doing?
Not-
You have a program or working with other people on a program. What's the key part of it?
Communication. I know that sounds stupid and obvious, but you'd be amazed how often people come into a housing program to help them and say, and you start out with, I know what you need. No, you don't. You don't.
And haven't you also been working on a program that houses veterans that were homeless near each
Yes.
other in a little community?
Yeah, one of the things we do is there are a lot of abandoned buildings, particularly in Florida, where the industrial world has kind of left us. There are a lot of large buildings that can be transitioned into housing units. So you've got other veterans with you to talk to, but you've still got your own space. And then you can put a counselor somewhere in there, with an office like on the bottom floor that's always there. There's always somebody there 24/7. You have a tough time with something, knock on the door, walk in, you have somebody there. It's never enough. It just isn't. We have a lot of veterans in Florida, and a lot of them are homeless. And we keep buying land and building facilities, but but a lot of the veterans, because of what they've been through, don't trust anything that even smells like bureaucratic.
That's what Steve just said, right? Don't really trust the government.
Yeah. No. So you have to kind of find a balance there. You need to be able to talk to them. I've been in places where I've seen a guy come into like a bar. And this was one happenstance. He came into the bar, and all of a sudden he was like standing there, and there was a sharp noise, and he just froze. And I got up, and I'm like, it's okay. You're all right. He's like, thanks. I'm like, welcome. Sat back down, back to where I was done. You just need to be aware that they've been through a lot, and it's stuff that we haven't experienced.
Stephen, any closing thoughts here?
God bless America.
Yeah, ma'am.
I hope this administration takes care of our veterans.
What's the most important things you want them to do?
Oh, I want the economy to be better. I want housing interest prices to go down. I want us to be a strong nation that all these bad guys out there like Iran, North Korea fears us. I want these dictator countries to fear us. That's what I want. I mean, if they fear us, they will mess with us. True?
Hopefully.
That's true enough. I would like for people who work in the VA not to tell veterans what they need, but to ask veterans what they want.
And my guess is there
are not
enough veterans employed by the VA. There's too many people employed by the VA who've never served in the military.
Yes.
And there's a handful of veterans out there, playing devil's advocate, don't know what they want.
That what?
Yeah.
That don't know what they want.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to real communication and not assuming that you know what they want.
Well, you run into it in the medical world too. When my son was dying, and the nurses thought they knew what was right for him, and they didn't. They just didn't know where his head was.
It's traumatic when the healthcare system doesn't listen.
Kathy, did you lose your son?
Yes.
My condolences for your loss, Kathy.
Thank you.
It does seem to be getting somewhat better. There's a very high trust in the VA services. I think it was like 79% of the people surveyed, veteran survey, trust the VA, which is really remarkable. So I think in some ways it's getting better. What bothered me the most about the strategic plan is they don't really measure their performance. So I couldn't, and I looked at it 3 times, I think. I couldn't find anything in there about, what are the numbers for veteran suicide? What are the numbers for homeless vets? What programs really have an impact? And to Kathy's point, how are you training people to actually listen first to what a veteran says and what a veterans want? How are you measuring that? So for me, the metrics part of the plan, I couldn't find it. It just wasn't very clear to me. So I think if we're going to say the VA has to pull out homelessness as a more high priority, more visible activity, and pull out teaching people that work in the VA how to communicate clearly and how to listen, and pulling out how important it is to start that transition out of the military, if that ever fully happens. Start the transition into civilian life way before you are ready to leave. And I think those are some of the key things that we've said. Anybody want to add anything? I'll give Stephen the last word, but I'll ask Kathy what she wants to add.
No, I think I've covered what I want to see done.
Stephen, final words?
I want to thank every veteran out there for their service to this country. And God bless America. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, Dr. Kahn, for having us. And thank you, Kathy.